How I wish every physician in America understood this. You know what a tumor looks like, right? Some of you have had a tumor cut out of your body and saved it in formaldehyde and looked at it, a little white woven sac, right? Kind of a tightly woven sac. It's fascinating. I had a PowerPoint presentation a short time ago and I made a copy of one of my slides. It's called the ascomycete. It's a sac fungus. Fungus grows, these green spores, or ascospores, grow in a tight sac. And they can live without oxygen, they can liberate lactic acid, they do everything a cancer tumor does. And they slowly get bigger and bigger and bigger. So this slide was fascinating. What is an ascomycete? Their spores can survive intact for indefinite periods of time in a sac-like structure. They can be dimorphic, meaning at body temp they can change from mold to the parasitic yeast form to invade and then reside inside our bodies. And number 3, they include cordyceps, blastomyces, histoplasma, cordyceps, aspergillus, Baker's and Brewer's yeast, Saccharomyces, and finally, penicillin. Penicillium can create a sac-like structure inside our body that, folks, I've got to tell you, I'm not a doctor, but it would mimic a tumor growth in your body most of the time that would be called cancer. All I'm telling you is be judicious if you have a lump in your body. Get 2, 3, maybe 10 different opinions. If you knew me 20 years ago, you would subscribe to something called the Fungazette, topical articles about mold, mildew, raw milk, anything else that came out at that time. Today, the Fungazette is Kyle and Doug. Hey, hey. Good to see you, man.
Nice to see you too.
Thank you for coming in. Talking about topical issues, and we're going to do that right now. You've got some, I've got some.
Let's do it.
Let's educate the folks, and you get started first.
All right, so I have 2 good ones today. One's kind of fun and one's kind of serious. I'll do the serious one first.
Okay, good.
It is, let's see, medical hypothesis, chronic intestinal candidiasis, that means stomach fungus, it's candida, as a possible factor in chronic fatigue syndromes. Oh. And they took a bunch of people, they started testing them, and they found out, look, chronic fatigue has a certain set of symptoms. When people have candida in the gut, they have those same symptoms. What's the connection? And they're thinking, well, maybe the connection is as simple as chronic fatigue syndrome is not an isolated syndrome, it's an actual fungus problem.
You were getting makeup on, but the other day I did an opening on the show and mentioned this. When I went to work with the doctors out here at Medical City when I came from LA, they were a skin clinic, so we helped a lot of skin people by understanding that antifungals were causing a lot of the skin problems, and then my diet would starve fungus, right? But so many people came back to the clinic and said, Doug, is this antifungal program at all linked with my fatigue? Because the first week I started, I couldn't stay awake, and now, man, I feel like 110%. And I would always offer the same consistent maternal advice. Go home, eat a piece of pie, have a soda pop, drink an alcoholic drink, and see how you feel. You know, followed by the next day, they really
for the first 15 minutes, they felt great.
Then they felt horrible for a day or two. So it's interesting, excuse me, that there is a fungal component to fatigue.
Just keeps being reviewed over and over again.
Which do you want here, Kyle? I have 2 headlines. Congress moves to end raw milk prohibition.
Oh, gosh.
Or the gluten-free craze. Oh, let's do this. Okay, look, 1/3 of America has caught on to this. This is not the first time. I remember, gosh, I'm going to date myself, but probably close to 40 years ago, when I was working with Howard Gottschalk in the Allergy and Immunology Clinic there in Los Angeles, gluten-free came across my desk. Gluten is a fraction of the wheat, barley, rye, protein of the grain. And they say by avoiding this gluten, you'll feel great. Here's the problem. And this was, you know, it's all hypothesized in this article. Experts question the benefits of gluten-free for all but a small minority that have gluten intolerance, right? Here's the problem. Everybody goes off wheat and barley and rye. How much barley and rye do we really eat? But they go off wheat. Everything has wheat in it. And man, for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you feel like $1 million. Here's the problem. Corn commonly contaminated with these fungal poisons. And sugar aren't gluten-free. So you're eating lots of those. By 2 weeks, you're feeling, boy, why can't I feel as good as I did the first few weeks when I was avoiding just wheat? So eventually the corn and the sugar and the other foods catch up with you.
I've always said that on this show, that everybody I've seen that's done gluten-free, their symptoms go like this initially and then like this ultimately.
Yeah,
Especially all those gluten-free flours that people are using that are made of corn and potatoes and all of the rest.
Well, Kyle, I think it's a good start. I remember Bill O'Reilly one time on TV on Fox News, he said, tip of the day, go off wheat. Okay, everybody went off wheat and they started writing them. I feel like $1 million. Wait until the corn starts and the sugar starts. These are just other grains to consider. Congress moves to end raw milk prohibition. Big deal, bipartisan.
Unbelievable.
Now, currently it's a crime. You will be fined, you could be put in prison for drinking what my producer drank on the farm as a little boy, as did all his siblings and his mom and dad. Oh, by the way, they're all fine. It was from the tap, goat or cow milk. Somewhere along the line, Kyle, somebody invested in a pasteurization process in the 1970s or 80s, and all milk had to be poured into that, boiled to 212 degrees. And on the very surface of it, it seems okay. Get rid of the bacteria. Then we learned, wait a minute, bacteria is actually good. A lot of bacteria is good. Maybe that was a culture of milk that was good for our health.
I was turned on to raw milk a few years ago, and I have loved it. I actually like raw goat milk better than raw cow's milk, and I think it was so amazing, the difference. When I drank it, put it in smoothies, it was astonishing. I loved it. And I hope that this fails. I hope all of us can band together and help this to fail, because this is the worst idea.
No,
that
it's
I've
actually a
heard in
good
long
idea.
time.
Congress moves to end raw milk prohibition.
Oh, prohibition!
Yeah,
Yay!
yeah,
Never
exactly.
mind. I'm sorry. I was
It
wrong.
passes. It's going to pass.
I totally missed what you said.
No.
I thought that they were trying
I did
to
too
all
when
ban
I first read it.
Oh my gosh!
I missed the prohibition.
I
And
am
said
so
yes.
used to them banning everything that's good.
Right,
By the way,
exactly.
one quick thing: the breakfast that could make you gain weight. This is just a funny little thing. It was in Woman's Day. The breakfast that can make you gain weight. Researchers at University of Alabama took one group and they gave them high carb, low fat, and another group high fat, high protein. And guess who gained the weight? It's the people that ate low fat and high carb. For you, that's like toast, cereal with low fat milk.
Yeah.
The people that ate eggs did great, lost weight.
Sad thing is, most nutritionists and doctors are still there. Stay away from that fat and load up on those carbs. Could the reverse be more healthy? Don't go away. More of Know the Cause right around the corner.
I was diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic 8 to 10 years ago. I was having a conversation with a man upstairs. Why is my blood sugar at 235 and I've got all the sugar out of my diet totally? So I was eating a big salad and I turned the ranch dressing bottle over, and believe it or not, the second ingredient was corn syrup. No dietitian, no nutritionist has ever talked to me about corn syrup before. They always talk about sugar. Just about all processed foods contain corn syrup. White bread, third ingredient. Wheat bread, fourth ingredient. Hot dogs, third ingredient. There isn't a hot dog on the market that doesn't have corn syrup in it. A month after getting corn syrup totally out of my diet, my blood sugar went from 235 to 150. The second month it went from 150 to 100. It may not be that everybody has a corn syrup connection like I do, but for me, my body doesn't process corn syrup worth a darn. I was eating Cool Whip instead of ice cream, thinking I was doing the right thing, only to find out that Cool Whip is nothing more than water and corn syrup. I've had corn syrup out of my diet for 6 months or more now, and I found that I could sit in the seat that I was sitting today, and the screen was not a blur. I could read it without glasses. My long-range vision has come back to where I can see things that I could never see before, and I found out that excess sugar is converted to sorbitol, which is then stored in the lenses of the eyes and leads to cataracts. Neither my doctor nor my eye doctor could explain to me until I read that article and took it back to them. And then they said, well, your body must have reabsorbed the sorbitol, which restored your vision to you.
Some of you like this segment. It's a lightning round, really. Word association. Kyle and my producer, John, have come up with a list of words, and you give it to me. And is it a one-word word association or 20 words?
Yeah, whatever you want to do, but it's fast, lightning round.
I'll try.
First
I'll try.
thought off your head. Okay, Kyle, no.
Don't start there.
Right. Nuts, good or bad?
Oh, good.
All right, caprylic acid.
First antifungal I knew of from coconut.
You bet. Inflammation.
So what makes bread become inflamed? I think yeast.
Yeast. That was going to be the next one, but I'm skipping that one and saying multivitamin.
Okay, food provides multivitamin, multimineral. Not eating good food, you need to supplement.
I like that. Iodine.
First antibiotic that I know of was iodine.
Huge. Irritable bowel syndrome.
IBS, irritable
Yeah.
bowel syndrome. Probably thumbprint, but I got to tell you, find me an IBS patient who hasn't first taken an antibiotic, and we have a serious disease problem in America. I think antibiotics induce many bowel problems. Was that one word?
That was exactly what I wanted, though. Diflucan.
Diflucan. Diflucan, 1986, AIDS pill. 1989, vaginal yeast pill. Now, isn't it interesting that a virus called AIDS responds so favorably to an antifungal that would cure vaginal yeast? So it's a systemic antifungal.
I like this one because it's weird. Livestock feed.
Oh boy, there's actually some newsletters called that. In livestock feed, so often we are now looking at mycotoxins. They're eating it, we're eating them.
Greens juice or carrot juice?
Boy, two different
This is
reasons.
more of a preference thing.
I like, okay, so if I feel sick, I'm doing a greens juice. I might do carrot juice very, very often throughout the day for the falcarinol, the beta-carotene, etc. Orange foods, own benefits. Green foods, other benefits.
Household mold.
Yeah, so I like TKO.
Yeah.
I really like Barb and Frank Long's TKO to squeeze and clean the house of mold.
We just said nuts earlier, peanuts.
So peanuts are commonly contaminated with aflatoxin. It's a mold, Fusarium or Aspergillus, that makes this poison called aflatoxin. So peanuts, no-go.
Thumbs up, thumbs down, penicillin.
It can save your life. If overconsumed, it can take your life. I am convinced that these antibiotics sometimes do more damage than good when they're hyper-prescribed.
Radiation / Fukushima. Radiation.
Right. I think
all of-
Fukushima has, look, the oceans are filled with iodine. It's called seaweed. So I don't think we have to worry about Fukushima transmitting to California.
That was the lightning round, brother.
Ta-da, we did it.
Good job.
My name's Shannon Mitchell, and I live in Springfield, Missouri. I got diagnosed with prostate cancer about 6 years ago, and I went to a meeting with Don Strom in Arkansas, one of Doug Kaufman's meetings, and I've followed the phase 1 protocol for now about 6 years. And most of the people I know that tried other methods that had it, they're not here, and I am. I'm leaner and a lot more muscular. Anytime that I cheat, you can tell a difference. And usually, the diet itself corrects me pretty quick because I know that, well, I'm doing something I shouldn't do because I don't feel good. Well, I'd recommend that they look into this very seriously. I think it's the best alternative I found to radiation or chemotherapy, and I didn't want to try those. The meeting that Don took me to in Arkansas, Doug's meeting, was an answer to prayer.
Makes so much sense. Okay, welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Now we want to talk about mycotoxic medications.
Yep.
And the first one that comes to mind, Kyle, is cyclosporin. It's the drug Mickey Mantle took when they gave him a new liver to prevent rejection of that new liver. And by the way, it's fascinating to read about this mycotoxin. Remember, a mycotoxin is a poison, so this medication is a poison, but it does a very good job of lowering your immune system. It's a poison, so that the immune system won't get in the way of that new liver that was in Mickey Mantle. I think it's something like 100% of the people who take this end up with hypercholesteremia. Isn't that
High
fascinating?
cholesterol.
High cholesterol, right. And a lot of them have heart disease and so forth. Mickey Mantle didn't die of a liver transplant. He died of, and the newspaper always says, complications. If you're swallowing a mycotoxin, so let's step over that line. Some chemotherapies are mycotoxins.
Well, on that note, having been the former chemotherapy sales rep here, let me say this. When I was selling chemotherapy...
By the way, did you know that some of them are mycotoxins?
Okay, well, that's interesting. No, not in the beginning, until I discovered you, and then I started reading. And then I did.
Right.
What was fascinating to me was one of the drugs that I was selling, they always gave us these bonuses, bonus money for doing special things. And one of the things that I did, we ended up having a drug that gave fungal infections. And the reason is because it so wiped out the immune system, boom, the fungus just ran rampant, it wiped out the good guy bacteria, et cetera, et cetera. And so I ended up doing research on the best antifungals that were out there and put a little handbook together. I actually owe this to you, but I put this little handbook together, distributed it to everybody in my district, and they said, wow, Kyle needs a bonus for that, and gave me like $500 for putting this together. Because
you owe me $250.
I had thought at least $250. Right. And so they distributed it to everybody so that we could go, when we talked to our doctors, we'd say, look, here's the deal. Whenever you give this drug, you're going to need to give them some diflucan, some amphotericin B, some Sporanox, whatever. Anyway, it was with that money that I bought my first Vitamix. It's like, Peter has been robbed, and here comes Paul. I mean, it was the weirdest thing. I have such weird misgivings about it because it was paid for with pharmaceutical money, but that's what came from it. But yes, these things, and that's kind of the same category, the tissue rejection, anti-tissue rejection drugs, and the chemotherapies that just blow out the immune system. Both of those I put in the same category because they so suppress the immune system. But then you've got things like prednisone, birth control pills, and antibiotics that work in a whole different way.
You've seen my book, circa 1957. I got this at Half Price Books for $1. 1957 book. It's called The Handbook of Toxicology. I mean, who would buy that, right? I'm the only guy that would want that. If you've had toxicology in college, you know that's the study of poison. This book was amazing. I stood there salivating in Half Price Books 20 years ago. I'm going through it. It's every antibiotic. There were like 400 of them on the market in 1957. And it was the LD50. Do you know what that is?
Right.
Lethal dose that 50% of the rats would die from, that they inject this drug into. And it went from, one antibiotic to the other, penicillin, et cetera. So if a handbook of toxicology has been written about the first 400 antibiotics on the market, folks, you just saw in our lightning round, penicillin, 2 thumbs up. It has saved a whole lot of lives in 1956. Today we have totally abused it. I don't mean partially. We have totally abused antibiotics without, we thought they were candy. We thought we could give them to people and they just magically, they could, not get a bacterial infection. Little did we know that penicillium is the mold and penicillin is the mycotoxin made by the mold. For all of us who have swallowed at our doctor's request hundreds and hundreds of antibiotics, it's probably not surprising that we see you now. Remember, mycotoxins are immunosuppressive. Gee, Doug, I get every cold that comes along. Well, I take a lot of antibiotics for my acne, and I also have interstitial cystitis, and the doctor feels my knee problem is an infection, so he keeps me on antibiotics. Isn't that fascinating?
Man. That
the most commonly used drugs in America are mycotoxins. Then we sit back in medical school and scratch our heads and say, I don't get this. Why are Americans so sick? You don't get it, Doc? We couldn't do it ourselves. We needed you to write us the prescription. See, I can't walk into a pharmacy and make myself sick. You've got to write that prescription. When I see the drug ads at night, the side effects are lethal. It can kill you. I've got to scratch. And then you walk into your doctor's office and say, I heard about this drug. I want to take it. And the doctor says, yeah, take lots of it. Why are we so sick in America? Mycotoxic chemicals that are our medications are part of the problem. Good stuff.
In the beginning of October of 2012, I was diagnosed with neuroendocrine carcinoma. I was told I have a mass in the pancreas and that I had stage 3 metastases in the liver. In November, I began the phase 1 diet as well as some supplements, and I used the infrared sauna, the far infrared sauna, and by January, all the masses have shrunk in half except for the pancreas. It has shrunk, it just hasn't shrunk in half yet. I've had anxiety for years, that's disappeared. I've had thinning hair, my hair started to grow back. Dry skin is going away. I've had nothing but wonderful results. Don't make a hasty decision. Do your research. Start the phase 1 diet and then find the supplements that are going to work best for you. Take your antifungals. I've taken antifungals since.
Okay, let's just summarize. So cyclosporin, tissue rejection drugs, antibiotics, et cetera, chemotherapy drugs, et cetera. Some of these things are made from mycotoxins.
Yep, and we're talking about things that, certain drugs that are exacerbating a fungal condition. So let's include regular antibiotics, let's include birth control pills.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a difficult one. Let's include steroids like prednisone. I don't care about specific names of drugs. These are the categories of drugs. But one thing that I just wanted to impress upon people is that you're drinking tap water that has chlorine in it. Chlorine is there to kill bacteria. You have good guy bacteria in the gut. So you're drinking chlorinated water, the good guy bacteria gets killed, and guess what can grow up? Another yeast infection or yeast overgrowth. And also, I'm just not a fan, this is only myself, of antibacterial soap. That's an antibiotic. Antibacterial soap, I think you can do fine with something else, but that just seems to be exacerbating this overabundance of yeast that I think that all of us are subject to these days.
And this gluttonous appetite for killing bacteria.
Yeah.
It grows on your hands. Good guys grow on your hands. And hospitals are the place, you know, a lot of bad bugs in hospitals, but I think many more that can grow on your hands are coming in the ducting system in the hospitals, right? And you're breathing them. So just keep that in mind. How many people have asked you, okay, I'm on Doug's phase 1 diet, I feel good, how long do I have to be on this?
Oh, gosh.
So this segment is all about, you know, maintaining good health. Right. What program do I need if I did discover, because I went on your diet and I took some probiotics and I took beta-glucans and so forth, and I feel like $1 million. How long do I have to stay on that program?
Listen, the producer of this show is a guy named John Miller. He's a friend. He said it the best I've ever heard anybody say it. He said, "Why would I ever get off of it? I feel great."
Yeah.
Phase 1. You know, I really am kind of tired of this phrase, look, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. Everybody says that about every single diet. It's a lifestyle. But this is a lifestyle. And the truth of the matter is, we have it is such old school thinking, and I mean for the best that it's old school, let's get rid of it. It is such old school thinking that I'm going on a diet, and I'm going to do it for this long a time until I lose 20 pounds, and then I'm going to go back to doing what I did that made me have to go on a diet to begin with.
It's
dumb.
You see this in January.
Terrible.
Do you not see on TV 50 companies come on with these micro meals that you pay $100 for, and they show, as the camera can lie, look, so they show these hamburgers. You can have a hamburger and you get it in the mail. It's like that big. It's a thimble. It's not. And so if you eat this way, you can lose weight. No kidding. Look, there's a symptom lifestyle and there's an asymptomatic without symptom lifestyle.
Yeah.
Oh, you can follow any number of diets right now, be symptomatic, but you'll follow their lifestyle, right? Or so many of you have found after 2 to 4 weeks on a phase 1 diet, I feel so good that I want to graduate to Doug's Phase 2 diet. Why I ever created that, I have no idea. But it is, you cheat to Phase 2.
Heck yeah.
It is some fruits, it is, you know, other things that we allow now on the Phase 2 diet.
Tortillas.
But we have a saying in Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
When you find a good horse, you ride it. Why in the world would you follow our diet? The ringing stops in the ear, the heart palpitation stop, skin is looking great, and then say, okay, I gave it a month. I'm going back to bonbons and alcohol and so forth.
Yep.
Stick with it.
Phase 1 diet is something that you stay tethered to all the time. Yes, your anniversary comes. Yes, 4th of July. Yes, everything comes. And you deviate from it. Everybody does that. But it doesn't mean that, oh, well, I deviated from it once, so I guess I'm no longer on the diet. No, you're tethered to it. Just come back to it. It's easy. You go out to eat one night, you have some chocolate pie, you go, oops, and then you get back on Phase 1, you're fine.
It's really a good idea. Now, tea tree. Do you know what that is? What that really is? We'll close today with a few seconds, I guess a minute, with Susie expounding a little bit on what tea tree is. Don't go away.
My wife and I, we're in this together and we support each other. We've gone mostly organic on our foods and stick to the Phase 1 as close as we can. I was having problems with some sinus infections and haven't had one of those in 2 years. Even had some toenail fungus and that went away too. So, and don't take any prescriptions, no medicines, and have been very healthy. I haven't had a slice of bread in 2 years, haven't had a potato in 2 years, dropped 20 pounds pretty quickly. It was pretty tough. The first couple weeks I was a bit on the irritable side, but eventually kept getting better, and it's really been a lifestyle change is what it's been.
You've all seen tea tree oil in a health food store, right? It's used topically. You don't take this internally, but toenail fungus seems to respond pretty well to Vicks Vapor Rub and or rotating tea tree oil and so forth.
All the topical, the skincare stuff, the stuff that develops on lice. A lot of kids, when they come home from school and maybe something's going on, their parents really like the tea tree.
Exactly. So it's one thing to hear Kyle and I talk about it. It's a whole other thing when a pharmacist stands there with you and teaches you about this amazing tea tree. Watch Susie.
You probably know that tea tree oil is effective at treating fungal infections, but did you know tea tree oil helps with other skin conditions such as acne, scabies, lice, chickenpox, shingles, even cold sores? You can buy it at any health food store. Just follow the label directions for the product you choose.